So it's the first week of April 2022. We've only got a couple of weeks now until the International Classic Motorcycle Show at Stafford, which also means it's the big one, the Bonhams Spring Sale. And we've been invited down today by Ben Walker, Andy Barrett from Bonhams to go through some of the bikes that they've hand-selected to give us a real taster of what to expect at the auction. And it wouldn't be a Bonhams auction without any Brough Superiors, and that's where we're going to start with this one. So, Ben, what have we got?
Well, what we have is a fantastic battle-scarred old warhorse. And you don't think you can ever find another one like this, but lo and behold, they're still out there waiting to be discovered. This was in the front room of our client's house, along with two other dismantled Brough Superiors, also in the sale, a 680 and an SS80. It was purchased indirectly from Dick Knight, the Brough Superior chairman back then, and prior to that had been in the ownership of a Reg Barton, who was a well-known sprinter.
Okay.
We're not entirely sure what Reg Barton did with this machine. It'd be great to find out. We have found some period articles from the 1950s where he's been interviewed, where he talks about the motorcycle, but it would appear at that point he was using it as a road-going machine.
Okay.
When Richard Galvin bought it in 1979, it was a running bike, and he did actually use it on some of the Brough Club events.
Wow. Yeah.
Since then, it has lain a little forlorn, but it's just fantastic. It's got a J-Tour engine fitted to it, not Brough, and a little bit later than the 1929 Bentley and Draper frame, but that engine was breathed on by Eric Ferneyhough of Brooklands fame.
Yeah, world record holder.
World record
very
holder.
Very well known, yeah.
Absolutely, and that's something really special.
Absolutely.
The bike itself is estimated at £70,000 to £100,000, which I think is pretty reasonable money for a really great bit of history.
It is a lovely thing. Like you say, you're not going to see another one quite like this. So it's a great opportunity for someone to acquire a Jap engine Brough Superior that's got some race history with it. And moving from a Jap engine Brough then to another SS100, which is, this particular one features the Matchless V-twin.
Yeah, it does. This is actually the fifth one to leave the factory. It's quite interesting. It's the engine and frame are a matching pair, but the actual engine number is the second one. It's 1002.
Okay.
Now, at the time period, AMC were stamping up the engine sent to Brough in Nottingham, but there was a slight change of plan at the time with the factory. So instead of being 4002, it ended up being 1002, which is on the works record card. They actually crossed it out and put 1002 on it.
Okay.
So actually, it's a really interesting thing, and the guy's owned this since the 1960s, and he's a fantastic engineer and restored at a time period. Hasn't been used in quite a long time. Sadly, the guy has some health issues and has been laid up. But yeah, what a great example of the SS100. You know, post-vintage. It needs a little bit of recommissioning to get going again, but I think it's just
ready to be brought back to life.
Yeah, it's a fantastic opportunity for it.
You'd probably leave it as it is.
Yeah.
You know, cosmetically, it's a little challenged, but really not too bad. I mean, the sad thing is it was left in our vendor's neighbour had a damp issue, unfortunately, and that's why it's sort of slightly deteriorated into the condition it's in. But used to belong to a plasterer's mate.
Really?
And he can remember sitting on the tank as a young lad and riding this motor. 70 years. 50 years he's owned it. Yep. 70 years he's known the bike.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It is wonderful. And these Matchless engine ones are actually slightly rarer than the Jap engine ones. They didn't make them for so long, did they? And there was less of these produced.
And also probably a more pleasant motorcycle to ride.
Yeah, more usable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I always think it's got a bit of a middle-aged spread if you compare it to a sort of a live, lean 1929 Alpine Grand Sport. But yeah, I don't think there's nothing wrong with Matchless engine SS100s.
So yeah, it really is a lovely example. It's got its Castle front forks on, which are very desirable. Twin throttle body on the carb there, rigid rear end, but it is a lovely example of the SS100 with Matchless engine. And
yeah, I mean, funny enough, the guy actually bought it back in the day, £15.
wow.
Yeah, which is incredible. But now it's in at 120 to 180,000 pounds, which is a really good estimate for it. And a chance of owning any Brough for 120,000 pounds is worth doing.
Plenty of room there for any kind of mechanical work that would need to be done to it. And you still have a bike which should be technically worth more than what you paid for it.
You guys sold one of these in November last year for over 250,000, didn't you?
Correct.
So they are very valuable and very desirable machines indeed. So moving along now to a gorgeous 1970s Italian machine. Talk us through this one, Ben.
So isn't it just the most gorgeous looking thing? What's really interesting about this motorcycle, and I'm sure you've noticed it, it's called a Boxer.
Right, yeah.
And MV produced 2 of these before Ferrari got a little bit unhappy because, of course, they had the rights to the name and made them change it, and it became the Monza. This actual example was loaned to Phil Reed in 1977, and there's a road test by Phil in Superbike magazine of the time, where he put some fantastic quotes about how this motorcycle rode and his thoughts and opinions on it, and it's worth checking out, and we do publish it on our website.
Okay.
The bike itself is a really great survivor. It's only done approximately 11,000 miles from new. It's been in one man's ownership since 2009 in his private collection. Temperature controlled conditions. The bike was last run in November. I was there when it was fired up. Sounded awesome.
So it was their road-going replica of their race bike, something with the inline double over a Cam 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ultimate incarnation.
Yeah.
And so expensive. I mean, this was twice the price of a Japanese, equivalent at the time. The most expensive motorcycle you could have bought.
Very exclusive.
Very exclusive. Hand built. I mean, you're not going to find. Well, there's another Boxer out there somewhere, but opportunities to have a machine with the Phil Reed provenance is few and far between. Does have its original fairing as well.
Yep.
But there's something so nice about being able to see the engine and it not being hidden away.
Definitely. An estimate on this one?
Well, very, very reasonable, £40,000 to £50,000.
Wow. For something so exclusive and
great
and rare,
history, great provenance, low mileage, highly original. Even down to the rear number plate is the one which you'll see in the road report, I believe.
So it's original registration, ready to go. Now, I quite like a Vincent or two, and this is a very, very fine-looking example of a Series A. Is it Meteor, this one?
It is. I mean, you should know this. You are the Vincent
I'll try.
specialist. Yeah, it's from 1937, Meteor. It's fantastic. It was originally sold by Conways back in 37, as you can see even by the dealer plaque under here as well.
Fabulous.
So it's matching upper, rear, engine, gearbox, and oil pump. At the moment, it's got the registration 175YUB on it, but we just found out from DVLA it's actually getting its original registration on the back, so everything we're matching.
Super.
Which is, terrific. I mean, it's won Best in Show in 2012 at a local bike show. The guy bought it as a restoration project, and it's even cooler because it has a bronze cylinder head as well.
Yeah, which is very rare indeed. Isn't it,
which you don't see very often. And I think even Bob Stafford's seen it at some point. It did actually have a Brooklands can, which, with your Vincent, is a nice little feature, but I think he wanted to keep it as standard as possible and put the sort of single silencer on there. It's just a great example.
It looks like the detail that they've gone to on it, even these, I was talking to Ben earlier about these Miller switches that you see on here, and the brake switch on the rear as well has got the Miller badging on. The horn is the correct type, so the detail on this is as near to factory as you can get, really. It is a superb example.
Nicest detail, of course, is that little cocker snook on the rear plate.
Yeah,
isn't that lovely?
A bit of that wasn't factory specific.
No, I don't believe it was, but
it is nice.
Yeah.
It is very nice. So a beautiful example, very desirable. The Meteor, they only made, I think, just over 200 of these compared to over 400 of the Comet. So it is the rarer of the two. And what's the estimate on this?
£40,000 to £50,000.
Lovely. So another beautiful machine from the 1930s now, this Sunbeam Model 95. So, Andy, talk us through this one.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's so cool, this thing. I mean, so it's quite an interesting bike. It's actually the only bike in the registrar. It may be a prototype or experimental competition bike because the frame number has FX prefix, which is the only one in the registrar which is always denoted being a prototype or experimental. It's the only one having FX, so we can't confirm it completely, but we're pretty sure it is a prototype or experimental version of their race bike. And these bikes came in 1934, straight after the Model 90. It's been with the family since the 1980s. We're not sure when it was last used, but it's an opportunity to acquire a great piece of Sunbeam history.
Superb. Like the Model 90 was a multiple TT winning bike. This was the next evolution, 95. So suggesting it could do 95 miles an hour. So a fast machine.
Terrifying.
Beautiful lines. I love these soup plate speedometers on the front, which just look stunning. And the great thing about these 1930s bikes, same with the Vincent, is that they're still usable today as in modern traffic. You can, it's capable of 60, 70 miles an hour. The brakes are pretty good on them compared to pre-war cars, which are pretty slow and hard work. People should consider buying these bikes, and they are usable even in modern traffic.
Yeah. Also work on them as well. I mean, they're not rocket science to work on. It's quite nice. If you haven't got the complete skills, you can still do an engine. It's not too bad. They're just a really great thing to have in your arsenal as well. I mean, it's not every day you can say you own a Model 95.
No, it is a beautiful thing. Estimate on this one?
It's £15,000 to £25,000.
Wow.
Which, I think it's an opportunity to really get a good bike. And it's just
very rare bit of kit, and it is stunning. And this isn't the only quite special Sunbeam in the auction, is it, Ben? There's an earlier version.
Well, there's an earlier version. There is a 1925 Model 11 Sprint in the cell, 500cc, another George Dance machine, which, obviously he was an integral part of Sunbeam at the time. And that is one of only two 1925 Sprints known to exist. Well, 500cc Sprints known to exist. That's had restoration, which is, somewhere in the region of about £25,000.
Wow, okay.
And has been built to be ridden, and the owner does ride it. I think he's rather sad to be parting with it. But that's that actually is up there in terms of rarity with this Model 95L rarer.
Yeah.
That's a little bit more expensive, reflecting the fact that it's a Sprint and that it's vintage, earlier machine. And of course, we know that Model 90s now sell for £45,000 for
big
a really
money.
good Model 90. The Sprint is estimated at £35,000 to £45,000.
Okay.
Which I think is a fair estimate for a really thoroughbred machine.
Barn finds and restoration projects are always very interesting machines, and there's a big desire for guys that want to do these sort of bikes. And what have we got here then, Ben?
Well, what we've got is a 1939 or thereabouts Royal Enfield Model C, 350 side valve, long neglected. We found it in a barn.
Genuine barn.
Genuine barn, where it was amongst about 40, 50 other motorcycles.
Wow.
Same collection as the Dick Knight Reg Barton Bruff Superior.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And if you look at the crates behind you, this was also inside that barn.
Wow.
I mean, it was a big barn, similar space to what we're in right now.
Yeah, an Aladdin's Cave.
An Aladdin's Cave. And we are selling all the spares as well. And the interesting thing about the spares is that there's a lot of new old stock parts. So when the late owner was buying this stuff, he was clearing out redundant or businesses that had gone out of business.
Okay.
And was able to buy these parts. Sadly, again, you leave things for a long time, they deteriorate, they go off, but there's still going to be some really interesting parts amongst those spares for people.
So there's nearly 300 lots, is there, of automobilia and spares?
Yeah, 300 odd lots of...
308 lots.
308 lots.
So, a great opportunity to acquire some parts if you're looking for some. Yeah.
Exactly. Out of 550 lots in the entire sale, it's going to be a very long couple of days. But this is great because, it's all good and well having the Bruff Superiors and the Vincents and the MV, so on and so forth. But actually, there's far more people with 800 quid, because that's all that's estimated at.
Wow.
In their pocket.
Yeah.
To come and spend and buy something that needs to be brought back to life. And of course, the more motorcycles that are restored, the fewer there are to restore.
Yeah, good point.
That's why we always love restoration projects.
Yeah, and a lot of people just buy the bikes because they enjoy doing the projects rather than riding them, don't they?
Absolutely.
So something like this looks pretty much complete.
Yep.
Is ready to be
There's nothing
brought back to
there
life.
that I think is going to prove to be too much of a challenge. And, I'll make sure that Andy goes and gets it, tests the compression and...
Wheels and everything.
Yeah.
Oil levels.
Yep.
Quick MOT before it goes.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, £800 to £1,200.
Excellent.
No reserve. It is going to sell.
Okay, another barn find, but a bit more of a challenge, this one then, Ben.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's actually been a bit of a challenge identifying it. We know it's a Rudge.
Okay.
We know that it's been stored in very poor conditions. But there is the making of something really great there. And clearly it's had some kind of competition use. We don't know if it's grass track or speedway. It's got some features of that. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's sold as viewed. It's £300 to £500.
Okay.
And again, you know, that will be, I hope, resurrected and turned into something that is going to live and breathe again.
Okay, so something completely different now. A two-stroke Grand Prix bike from the 70s. This looks really nice.
Yeah, this is a fantastic thing. The KR250, I think the last time we had one was back in 2008. It's been a long, long time since we actually offered one public for auction. And you know, it's not every day you get to offer this. And the fact that we believe that Baldy actually used this bike, and you know, we can't definitively prove it was him, but you know, we're hoping that more evidence will come out into light, and we're researching it as much as we can. But it's been used at Goodwood back in 2014. It's been part of the gentleman's collection for the last 10, 15 years. He's just been looking after it and enjoying it. It's just a terrific, terrific example of it. And
Yeah. And these machines were very successful in their day, weren't they?
they were. I mean, from 78 to 82, I think they won 79 Grand Prix with people like Cork Ballington and Mick Grant riding these things. And I think Mick Grant actually gave the KR250 its first win at Assen back in 77.
So these were, you know, a particularly good machine in its period. Would be a great machine to own now and use on the race circuits of today.
And this kind of era bike is becoming more and more desirable. I think the guys that grew up in this era, you know, are looking to buy these bikes they grew up idolizing as kids. And you know, this example here, I just, it's one of the best for me in the sale. It's such an eye catcher as well compared to. The green of Kawasaki is always eye catching, but I think particularly this shape and model, you can't
It's
beat
one of the
it.
best. Yeah. And what's the estimate on this one then?
25 to 35,000 pounds.
So from a fast and furious two-stroke to a more sedate Pioneer machine in this lovely Triumph.
One extreme to the other. And isn't it lovely? I mean, they're all lovely bikes, John, but this is particularly charming. Coming from the collection of a late friend of mine, who sadly passed away earlier this year. It's a bike that he used on the Pioneer Run. It's still got its Pioneer Run numbers on the front. In fact, Alan Windsor was his name, and I can remember Alan doing the run, and the focus and the concentration on his face when he was riding this motorcycle. But actually a very usable bike. I mean, it's the trusty Triumph.
500 side valve.
Yep.
Unbustable.
3-speed, 2-speed, can't remember on this one. But, you know, the machine which took lots of men to war as well, of course. And it's a different time, a different era. It was a different pace. And, you know, the great thing about the Pioneer Run is you can capture some of that again. And it's a fantastic run, and it's a run that we participate on and sponsor and really enjoy.
Wonderful event, and this is the perfect machine to enter that on.
Absolutely, very
Presented in
reliable.
Lovely condition.
Yes, it's not going to provide too many challenges. You know, taking it down to Brighton, unlike something which is, you know, a bit earlier. I rode a 1903 Brown once. That was a challenge. Trust me, that was a real challenge. But anyway, that's a smashing thing.
So it's a very fine example. What's the estimate on this one, Ben?
Well, £8,000 to £12,000, which again, for a Pioneer bike, a motorcycle over 100 years old, doesn't seem like a lot of money to me.
No.
I mean, that is, you know, if you bought it for £8,000,
I think you'd be very happy with that.
absolutely. Alan has roughly, 9 bikes in the sale? 9 bikes in the sale. And this is the earliest one. The latest one is a 1989 Honda RC30.
Yeah, that looks lovely.
A smashing bike. He owned it from new.
Okay.
Very limited mileage.
Genuine UK machine.
Genuine UK machine.
spec.
And kept in temperature controlled conditions along with the rest of the motorcycles. He had a very good eye, actually. He's also got the, not necessarily the last off the line, but the last numerically numbered BSA Rocket Gold Star.
Okay.
There's a 61 Triumph Bonneville. There's a very, very nicely sorted Velocette Thruxton in the collection as well. Just all nice motorcycles, all the sort of bikes that we'd all like to own and have in our own collections.
I like these little Honda CB160s.
Isn't it lovely?
It's a nice little thing.
Yeah, smashing
nice
thing.
Little thing.
Yeah,
But
that was That was Colin Seeley's bike at one point.
Oh, okay,
And
so it's got a good
Alan
history,
bought
yeah.
it from Colin, and that's a really sweet little motorcycle. In fact, Alan's mechanic, I was talking to just the other day, said that all the bikes should run sweetly once, of course, they've had their recommissioning and
Yep.
safety checks following, being inactive for about a year.
So well worth a look on those.
Yeah.
And remind everyone, when is the date of the auction itself?
So, all the spares and memorabilia
Yep.
on the 23rd of April.
Okay.
Motorcycles on the 24th of April. The sale will start each day at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So I would say get there early. Catalogue is now live online. Printed catalogue is available to buy.
Okay.
You can register now. Again, if you haven't registered before, just take a bit of time to do that. There is a bit of a process and procedure that you have to follow.
Fair enough.
On the day, we'll have anywhere up to sort of 1,000 people in the auction room.
Yeah.
So it's a really exciting environment. I don't need to tell you this, John,
No, I'll
because
be there. Yeah,
I
we
know
love
you will be there. But for anyone who hasn't been, it's so exciting. I mean, even Andy and I, who have spent the last 6 months curating this and putting it together, when you're finally there and you're in the room, it's such a buzz. The
It's a great
adrenaline is
place to be.
pumping. And you know how exciting it is to
It is,
bid
seeing
on a
all the bikes. And,
motorcycle.
yeah,
It's-
and there's always something there you didn't think you were going to you might pick a bike and go for that, but then there's always something else in there. You think, oh, actually it could be that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a great experience to be part of. And, we look forward to the event then at the International Classic Motorcycle Show at Stafford. And we'll be doing a full review of the auction as well. And that will follow shortly after at the end of the month.